Well, I think this is the problem. It's not that the far right have co-opted the flag. It's the fact that we don't seem to understand what this country is and the history of these symbols. So both of these flags which you've displayed here, those are the flags which flew on ships which enslaved my ancestors. Those are the flags which the British Army marched into places like India, Pakistan, Bengal, Africa, and colonised 25% of the world. The reason the far right picks up these flags and has consistently, since the 60s, 70s, since my parents' generation have been in this country, is because these flags represent the racism which they are putting out into the world. And I would just point out, this campaign of putting these flags up, this is not some benign, oh, let's just be patriotic. Go and search, Operation Raise the Colours, and you'll find the same far right, Little England, this nonsense spewing about all the migrant hotels, it's all this, that's what that's about. People aren't putting up this flag to celebrate Britain. They're putting up this flag to remind us that Britain is white and we shouldn't be here.
Rakib?
Well, I think, in my view, there's many reasons why we should be proud of British identity and we should celebrate expressions of English pride. If I just speak from a personal perspective, I think that Britain has a rich tradition of religious freedom. I also think that compared to other European countries, it fares much better in terms of anti-discrimination laws for its minorities. So I think the point to make is that people relate to the flags very differently. But if I just talk about my personal experience, I've lived in Luton all my life, so I can understand why, for some people, the St George's Cross flag, it can come across as quite intimidating and menacing, because the English Defence League, the EDL, was born in my hometown. But I actually think that when I see ethnic minority people expressing pride in their Britishness, celebrating their sense of belonging in England, I think that's the perfect antidote, a great counter-challenge to far-right activity and those groups that want to ultimately take ownership of those flags.
How can it be counter-challenge if the purpose of the flag and the reason they're putting this up there is to say, look, remind you that you're British, this protest, what are you protesting about? Like, there's nothing to protest if you're British. You're in the country, it's your country, etc., etc. So when people use this flag in that way, which they are doing now, how could it possibly be counter the far right to pick up the flag and wave the same flag they're waving?
But look, I mean, we know. I mean, if you see a far-right rally, we know the St George's flag pops up. I mean, not many people can deny that. Yeah. But we don't know for certain that everybody who waves an English flag or a Union Jack is protesting. They may well just be celebrating Britain. And I think you're absolutely right about the sort of colonial past, and that's true. But you could almost apply that to any flag. You could say, well, ban all European flags who were involved in any... America, I mean...
100%, yeah.
Saudi Arabia flag. Well, they've already been involved in wars they shouldn't be involved in. So how far do we go here?
Well, I mean, I think it's understanding what... Like, this Union Jack in particular, well, actually both of them, but the flag of what does the British Empire mean? What does that represent? And to be honest, the British Empire has killed, probably 100 million people around the world that look like me and Rakib and yourself. If you look at the prosperity that Britain is supposed to be celebrating, it's built off the back of slavery, genocide, colonialism, and it's not different today, right? Today, the world, places where my family's from, your family from, are still...
flags, then, for instance, at the Olympics, nobody would have flags if they've ever been involved in a war. When we were celebrating the glorious England win in football and St George's crosses were...
I mean, I was waving St George's flag a few weeks ago during the Euros, right here on this day.
Did you feel great about it?
I did actually feel good about it.
I would actually, honestly, if you're going down a country lane and you see a St George's cross on a pub, are you going inside?
Well,
honestly, are you going?
Well, you are. I mean, I come from Birmingham, Rakib, and the point is that there is, and we can't deny, there is an association, certainly between the St George's flag and far-right racism. How do we combat that? Because that can be unnerving and unsettling. I mean, when I drive back to Birmingham now, I do a section of the M5, and all the bridges, as you get into M5, for the first time, I've never seen this before. They're covered with St George's flag, and it does feel a little bit, oh my God, is this far right, or is this just somebody celebrating the Euros? But I suspect it might be a lot more to do with the former.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think for me, when you look at that sense of Britishness, I think that there are a variety of ethnic and religious groups that can buy into that. I think that, as I've said before, I think that when you look at the flags, they can be seen as a symbol of imperial oppression, and some people will associate it with far-right activity. But I think there's many people who are very fair-minded, very decent. They consider Britain to be their democratic home, and I don't think that's just the preserve of the white British mainstream. There are also people here who originate from other countries in the Commonwealth, for example, that they have a strong sense of belonging, and I think that should be encouraged, because I think ultimately, in a very diverse population that we have, we need to look at how we can create a sense of unity, common purpose, mutual obligations. Because as I said before, I think ultimately that is the perfect antidote to far-right ethno-nationalists who ultimately want to frame English identity and British national pride as something that is ultimately rooted in race and ancestry. So I think that you have to be able to cultivate a civic sense of belonging, and we should move into that direction.
If that's true, and if you're saying actually you want a Britishness which is inclusive of all of us, then this isn't the way. Like, this is very clearly not the way. This flag, these symbols, they represent white supremacy. They represent I mean, my parents were chased down the road by people waving both of these flags with me in a pram. Like, this, you're never going to get... There's a large majority, I don't know if it's a majority, but there's a large amount of people in this country who will never look at that flag and see anything other than intimidation and
this flag now also is representative of modern UK, which
no,
for all its flaws is a relatively successful, multi-ethnic, multiracial, multi-faith democracy.
Change the flag.
Change
if we're saying Britain's change the flag. Get a new flag.
What would you like? What would you like on the flag?
Hey, look, I'll be honest. Like,
some love hearts.
What did they say? There ain't no black in the Union Jack, and there still ain't no black in the Union Jack, right?
Would you? On a serious point, though, do you think if suddenly they put a black line in there, I mean, you know, that's not. Do you think that would help?
Well, no. I think the bigger problem is, and this is why I don't think it's a far right issue. We know the far right wave the flag. What is actually more dangerous when people like Keir Starmer come, and actually when minorities like my grandmother loved the British flag, loved the Queen, etc. That's actually more dangerous because when we're just saying, look, let's celebrate the country, but not actually deal with its terrible past and its terrible present. There's serious problems. I mean, black people in this country more likely to go to prison, less likely to have jobs, etc., etc., etc. We haven't dealt with any of those issues. That's the problem.
Okay. Are you coming to the football soon? Or are you waving flags with us?
I would not be waving flags.
Okay.
I just want to make a final point. I think the history is very complicated. There's no doubt that Britain participated in the transatlantic slave trade, but it did also play a pioneering humanitarian role in suppressing the slave trade. So the only point I'd make is that the history is somewhat complicated. You can still be proud in your country's heritage whilst recognising that there's certain elements of the history which are somewhat unsafe.
It's complex.
Good to speak to you.